Good evening and welcome everybody. I'm Steve Bristol. I'm the associate head of school, and as part of my job at HUN, I run the admissions office, and I've become a professional webinar host. 2 years of these now almost, and I still have the same anxiety before each one. I still worry about talking while muted and forgetting to stop my screen share and all those things that have become requisite parts of my professional life that nobody told me about when I interviewed for the job. But I'm thrilled to be here, really glad to have you joining us. This is the latest in a series of webinars we've designed focused on teaching and learning at HUN, and an opportunity to share the work we do with all of you, to let you hear from some of the faculty and friends of HUN who are part of our programming, and most importantly, to hear from our kids. And as has been the norm thus far, I have an illustrious panel for you today of Otis Dao, who's our Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Global Diversity and Equity and Belonging, and he's got it all going on. And then I have Dana Hughes Morehead, who's an alum, who's going to talk to you about her experience at HUN. And then I have two amazing kids, Nina Oparaji and Sanvi Upadhyaya. How'd I do?
Upadhyaya.
Upadhyaya. Thanks, Sanvi, for tolerating me. Tonight's topic, as you all know, is to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, cultural competency at HUN. The whole gamut, and you know, it's no secret to all of us that these are issues that are in front of us every day of the year right now. What I'm proud to say about HUN is these are not new for us. This is work we've been doing for a long time. It's unfinished work without question, but it is a part of our school culture. It's not, while we'll tell you a lot about programming and things like that, you know, these are not programmatic things for us. These are cultural. This is a foundation for a HUN education. You know, we want our kids to be comfortable with people that are not like them. And it's really as simple as that. This is the world that they're going to graduate into. We take our responsibility to prepare our kids for this very seriously, and part of that is bringing them into a community that is incredibly diverse, and letting kids be kids and let them meet each other and get to know each other and grow together and be challenged together and work together, and all of those things that are going to be part of their adult lives. And the more they learn how to do that with us and recognize difference as, you know, an amazing thing as opposed to a scary thing, you know, we'll have done our job well. And so I'm really, really excited to have everyone here today. The format for tonight, as we have in the past, is I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their relationship to HUN through the lens of diversity and equity and belonging. And then once we're done with that, then we're going to turn it over to all of you, and we're going to invite you to ask us questions. And we're anxious to have this conversation with you. You'll notice that our style is a little more authentic and informal than a lot of places, and because this is how we teach and learn here, is we do it through conversation. And so we're really excited to have you here to share that with us. As you think of them, we're going to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen rather than the chat. So if you have questions as we go along, throw those in there. And then after we finish the presentations, I'll go to that and I'll play Stump the Panel with your questions and make sure I avoid the really hard ones. So again, thank you all for being here. As I said, this is not new work for us at HUN. This is part of a HUN education and has been for a long time. But I will say that a lot of the work that's happening on campus is under the guidance of Otis Dao, who has 6-7 years, Otis?
8 now. This is year 8
years at HUN now, and is arguably the most in-demand person on campus, whether it's for events like this, for leading different programs, for advice and consultation. He is a hot commodity on campus. And so I will turn it over to him, let him tell you a little bit about the program, and then we'll go from there. Otis?
All right. Thanks, Steve. So hi, everyone. My name is Otis Dao. So I'm the Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Global Diversity. So I've been working at HUN I've been working at HUN for 8 years. I've been working in education for the past 16 years. So 8 at HUN and the other spent kind of in higher ed, working through different parts of the educational system. So had a chance to work with kids as young as elementary school to graduate students. So kind of using a lot of that background to craft programming around diversity and equity that kind of fits with the needs of the students that we have here. So we have a unique population. We try not to have a cookie cutter program. We try to kind of tailor it. It shifts, it changes as our student population changes, but some of the basic format and tenets kind of remain in place. So we want kids to leave at least with understanding and the value of diversity and what it can bring to any setting that they're in. We want students to have the capacity for cultural self-reflection. We want students to be conscious of the dynamics that are inherent anytime cultures interact. So anytime cultures are interacting, there's information that's being exchanged. So we want kids to be able to recognize it and also come with and develop the language to succeed in those spaces. We want students to have institutional cultural knowledge, whether it's the United States or the world, or even the institution that they're currently in. What did HUN look like 50 years ago, 100 years ago? How is HUN going to look in 10 years? What are the dynamics that are going to help shift and change that? And we want students to develop strategies to reflect and understand cultural diversity and inclusion wherever they go. So we know that the next step is college for most of our students. We want them to be ready, not just academically, but socially, culturally, as they enter these new spaces. So the basic framework, and I won't bore you with it, I'll just kind of speed through it. And I think the students and Dana will probably give you a little bit more information about some of what that looks like. So I'll give you the framework and then how it looks to students and feel. I'm sure they'll fill it in. So we kind of start with intra-community programming. So that kind of focuses on individual groups. So whether we have kids from all over the world, but we start with programming to help with those specific needs. So whether it's a program around Hanukkah, which we're actually running in the background right now, and then we have another one for our middle school tomorrow. So those are like individual programs. So Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Lunar New Year, Diwali are programs that are designed to help students feel the bridge between whatever their home community is and the HUN community. We start there and then we move into inter-community programming. And inter-community programming is designed to help create cross-cultural dialogue. So when one group has the opportunity to interact with another group. So we know from research, it doesn't just happen. You can't just throw a bunch of students in a school and expect authentic interaction. You have to actually create it. So that's what those programs are designed for. So Buddies Without Borders, International Week, Cultural Connections, where students from all over the world present to other students about what they love about their country, what are some of the food, politics, cultural norms, and they share and exchange information, as well as community service events. And then our last kind of layer of programs that work together are faculty training. So when we have faculty have the ability to respond in real time in the classroom, we give faculty those skills. We know that those skills are going to change. Language changes, capacity needs to be built up as the world around us kind of shifts and our student population changes. So we want to keep our faculty up to date. Mlk Leadership Summit gives students real training. So we have students who put the summit as one of the most inspirational pieces of their HUN experience, whether they're applying to Stanford, getting full ride scholarships to college based on the work around diversity and equity that they've done through the summit. So that's some of our larger programming, as well as some of the classroom dynamics. So right now I'm actually prepping. I need to pack as soon as I leave because I have a trip for my class tomorrow morning. We leave at 8 a.m. We're going to Montgomery, Selma, and Birmingham for my civil rights course, and we're going to study the civil rights period, but actually where some of those events took place. So using diversity and equity, bringing it to the classroom is part of our last layer. So we run a lot of programs, but the programming is designed to meet the needs of the students, and whatever those needs are as the student population shifts, we kind of make sure that we are responsive to those kids. So.
As I said, Otis is kind of busy, and between helping us tonight, the Hanukkah celebration behind him, I think he's on dorm duty at the same time, and he's flying to Alabama tomorrow. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. Dana Hughes Morehead, who is, as I mentioned earlier, a Hun alum, but a very, very active one, and been a huge partner with us in the last few years, in particular around these issues. And I thought she'd be a great voice to share tonight. So Dana?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Steve, for having me. I am Dana Hughes Morehead, class of 1995. I can't believe it's been that long. I have been accused by someone else on this Zoom as the person who loves Hun the most, and I will take ownership of that. I had a fabulous experience there. I went for high school only, but it was the school for me. I was a day student for 1 year. I was a resident student for 3 years, sophomore, junior, senior year. I was very active on campus through student life, dorm life, sports, clubs, activities. I even worked in admissions over summers. And so I did a lot of tours, incoming families, students, and prospective parents who are interested in the school, maybe even for the parents before the kids were interested in the school. But I did a lot of that work during my time there in the summer and after school sometime. So that's sort of my time at Hun. As an alum, I've been very involved over the years. I currently sit on the alumni board, and I am a volunteer for the Cultural Competency Committee, which Otis runs. And I think one of the biggest areas of impact I've made with cultural competency, diversity, equity at Hun as an alum is being the co-founder of the Hun Black Alumni Network. That just started last year. And it's the opportunity for us to build the network of people, bring people together, and create this bridge really for students, for families, and connection back to the school. There are a ton of people who will say, I love Hun, and they all have had great experiences as students, but to actually be involved on a consistent basis does take planning and mobility and a network. It doesn't just happen on its own. And so that's the work that I've been focusing on as a volunteer for the last, year now. We've been in that new initiative, and it's been wonderful. We've had great response. We've been able to create the network and build the group of people to come together in a way that's been meaningful. They've been able to meet each other, cross generations, cross industries, cross region. And as soon as the world can fully come back to in-person, we will gather in person. We've been meeting over Zoom since last spring. But that's something we can talk about later, and feel free to ask questions about the Alumni Network. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. Sanvi, can I throw it to you next?
Hi, my name is Sanvi. I'm currently a senior at Hun. I'm from Franklin, New Jersey, and I'm a day student. And I would like to reiterate what was said, and especially I want to emphasize how great it is to be able to learn about different people's cultures at Hun. I think one of my most favorite part was like when I first came in 9th grade was learning about just how different my life and like my international friends' lives were from where they're from, because I really never got to hear firsthand accounts of stories of where they were from. And now I'm like really happy to say I have so many international friends, and it's so great to be able to learn about such different things that you wouldn't experience. Maybe if you're living in the United States, you wouldn't experience here. And then I think what's also great is being able to celebrate holidays with other cultural clubs. So like Mr. Dao said, being able to celebrate Hanukkah, or I'm one of the leaders for Masala Club. So we celebrated Diwali this year, and being able to celebrate that with the Hun community and share what is special with you to other people and teach them about it and also learn from them. I think that's something which is really important and special with that whole diversity inclusive part, because you're learning and you're also teaching other people.
Awesome. Thank you. Nia?
Hi, I'm Nia. I'm a boarding student. I'm a junior, so this is my third year at Hun, and I'm from West Orange, New Jersey. And Hun has really given me a place where I feel safe to like embrace my entire identity and to enter into new spaces and learn about new cultures without like the fear of being judged. And I really think that Hun does a really good job at supporting like students like me, whether it's through group like affinity groups like the Black Student Union or Asian Culture Club, Middle Eastern Society, Gender and Sexuality Awareness, like Buddies Without Borders. They really do a good job at creating safe spaces for students to not only share their experiences, but also to learn about someone else's experience and other people's cultures.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. As I said in the beginning, I'd love to turn it over to our audience now and answer your questions and turn this into a little bit more of a conversation, albeit we can't see you, but we'd love to use the Q&A feature in Zoom. And as you have questions, just throw them in there. While you're sort of getting your wheels spinning on that, I'm going to start, and I'm going to ask Sanvi and Nia I'm going to sort of test myself. One of the things that as I interview families that I talk about a lot, and it comes back from a boy in an interview several years ago who asked me to describe the school in one word. And I thought, all right, I'm the admissions director. I'm supposed to say academic and rigorous and all of those things. And I really wrestled with this, and I finally came back to it's comfortable. And I want to ask Sanvi and Nia, am I accurate? And why?
I would agree. I would say you're accurate, because I think Hun, like Nia said, there's a space for everyone. And for me, like being a part of GEM, which is Gender Equity Matters, or being a part of Masala Club, it's all helped me find a space which is comfortable. I can talk about issues which aren't really talked about maybe in the real world, or maybe are ignored. I know when COVID was happening, I was really concerned for my family in India, and Masala Club gave me a space to talk about that concern, because we were all going through that fear of like our families in South Asian countries. And so it is a comfortable environment, and I think the teachers are all always willing to listen to you as well, which is great, because they're not just your teachers, they're actually people trying to help you learn, and they're good teachers. Actually, they're great teachers. So I think it's a really comfortable environment.
Yeah, I definitely think comfortable is an accurate word. I think one of the things that I love most about Hun is that there's someone for everyone. So no matter like who you are, where you come from, like you can find someone who may not be like you, but understands you, understands like, and is like wanting to listen to like you and your experience. And like, it's really easy to make friends that way. So I think comfortable is a good word.
Okay, now I feel better about my work, and I'm not, but part of the reason I talk about it that way is I do think it is the foundation for a lot of the success that you guys have. If you feel comfortable, you're going to have a voice. If you feel comfortable, you're going to speak up in class. If you're comfortable, you're going to try new things. And I think the foundation of a lot of the work that you're all doing is about making everybody feel comfortable on campus, feel like they belong. And I really do think it is the foundation for all the other things that we're going to build on top of it, whether that's the academic work or athletics or arts and all the other stuff. All right, we have our first question. Are the cross-cultural activities events held between affinity groups that are mainly for the purposes of networking and understanding each other's cultures? Otis, can I throw this to you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm rereading it. Yeah, so I think mostly all of our cross-cultural programs are kind of designed for that piece. So I think the whole Buddies Without Borders group is essentially a cultural exchange program where the programs are designed for one person to kind of share a part or aspect of themselves with another group. I think just kind of all of our affinity groups. So we have about, I think, 9 affinity groups that would fall within that space. And all of those groups are charged with hosting 2 programs per year that are designed to have sort of a cross-cultural appeal. So they have to be public. Everyone has to be able to attend. They have to, and the purpose and intention is that very sort of thing to help others understand the culture. So like right now, the event is one of the JCC's public event, Hanukkah. So what is Hanukkah? Who celebrates it? Why the candles, or like why this many? So all of it is like designed beforehand to do that. And then we have some of our other programming, which is specifically around leadership. So like the Young Women's Leadership Program, they kind of work around creating cross-cultural dialogue and taking the work from that small space to the larger campus community. I hope that answered the question.
Awesome, thanks. Next one's going to Sanvi and Nia. Do you feel like you've been taught to be an effective leader in the community? And do you feel as if you're heard among your peers and your teachers?
Yeah, so I'm actually a part of the Young Women's Leadership Program, like Mr. Doss was just talking about. And I think it's a really nice group just because it's specifically for like women, which I think sometimes for me, like I get a little bit intimidated with like larger groups of people and I kind of like take a step back. But I think when it's like a smaller, more like intimate setting, it's a lot easier for me to speak up or take a leadership role. So I think that since coming to HUN, I've really stepped out of my comfort zone and become a leader in a lot more areas than I think I expected to, like originally even coming here. And so I do feel heard because like some of the programs like the Young Women's Leadership Summit have really prepared me and made it so that I feel comfortable standing, like not standing up for myself, but like making myself feel heard in front of my peers and my teachers.
I would agree with that. I remember I used to say sorry a lot. And ever since like in 9th grade, I've had so many teachers just stop me and say, don't say sorry, like especially about things you're not sorry about. So like if I'd be writing an email, I'd be saying, sorry to be bothering you. Or like if I hop into extra help last year on Zoom, like, oh, I'm sorry, but, and it's all these little things that you know, when you're not sorry, you shouldn't be saying sorry for these type of things. And like, I used to feel obligated to say that, but I think it's really been great having those teachers who guide you and tell you like, no, you don't have to say this. And I remember at one point I used to let myself be talked over. And I went to my teacher about this and he taught me because I was scared of sounding bossy. And I told him this and he was like, no, bosses have to be bossy and you have to be assertive. And I think that's one great thing that I learned from Han. And I keep that line with me, like bosses have to be bossy. So I think that teachers really guide you. I think I also am heard by my peers a lot. We aren't scared to talk about issues that may seem controversial or anything because we know that we want to discuss it. We want to get to the, I guess, to the deep parts that you won't again discuss with maybe just, or that are ignored. So you want to discuss them. And I think that's like the cool part.
Dana, I feel like you're the living proof, the evidence of this. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what leadership you learned through HUN and how that's translated into your adult life?
Thank you. So I mean, I definitely wasn't a quiet student on campus. I was very active. We didn't have the programs that you have today over 25 years ago. So there wasn't like a young women's leadership program, but there I was like a dorm proctor. So I took leadership in a different way. We still had student council. We had leadership roles within our sports. So there were opportunities sort of back then too. But the thing people always ask, why do you think Hun prepared you so well for the real world? And I always say, because I feel 100% comfortable and confident in any situation, in any conversation at any time. And I'm a talker, so that's part of my personality. But that doesn't give me, just my joy for talking doesn't give me comfort and confidence. And I feel like that came from Hun, because you are in a classroom with people from all over the world. You are interfacing with your teachers from, all over. I had a lot of experience where I got to meet alum, and I got to meet with administrators and board members and donors and people that often seem out of reach. Hun made all of these people accessible to me. And learning, as a 14-year-old, how to have a conversation with the head of school and a top donor and an alum and class president, that's a great experience. And I feel like that is what's accessible to all students all the time, because it's one community, but it's a learning opportunity. For me, it was throughout my whole Hun.
Awesome. Thank you. Otis, I'll go to you with this. Racial, ethnic diversity of the faculty and the ability for kids to see themselves in the adults on campus.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of reading through the question, and something we've talked a lot about in our faculty recruitment and retention. So I think we're kind of in our second or approaching our second year of our strategic plan around diversity and equity. So we talk a lot about windows and mirrors and having faculty in the classroom. So like the windows are the folks who allow you to see the world a little bit differently than you're used to. And then the mirrors are the faculty who reflect parts of who you are back at you. And we want sort of a combination of windows and mirrors in the classroom so kids can see a reflection of themselves, but also have the ability to see through a different point of view. So that's part of embedded in our sort of faculty recruitment plan. So we've made some good strides over the last 2 years, partly because of what we've been doing around our strategic plan, but it's not like a completed sort of task yet. So we've been looking at departments and sort of auditing like who is in each department and sort of where kids would track. So if you were here for 4 years and you have to take English, math, science, like who could you potentially have? How many of those people might reflect your culture back at you? When faculty don't accept positions, like what are some of the reasons, and doing further reach out to them. Faculty who leave, we do extensive sort of exit interviews around, was there an opportunity in a larger city? Did you get married? Did you find, like, what was it that pulled you away? And then we survey faculty when we have a chance to meet them about what are things that what are things that are attracting you to a school? Is it the prestige? Is it the location? Is it the size? Is it a boarding community? Is it a day school? And then all of those dynamics we kind of work around to make sure that we have the best pitch to keep the faculty kind of up to date with who the kids are. So we want our student population and our faculty population at some point to kind of sync, or at least be closer than it currently is. So it's not there yet, but those are some of the current steps that we've been taking, in addition to kind of working with Dana on the Black Alumni Network to expand who we apply for jobs with, working with our parent networks to kind of say, hey, these are the positions. If you know anyone, let us know so we can flag those applications and maybe help them get an interview. So expanding our network is what we're kind of doing. We've made some really good strides, but it's not just to recruit them, we have to keep them. So, and keeping faculty of color is almost just as hard as recruiting faculty of color, because they're experiencing a cultural things that the students are, but on a heightened level because there's less in the school than in the student population. So
it's interesting, and Otis and I've had these conversations several times, and this is an ongoing challenge, I think, for every independent school. And what I've just appreciated about our investment, our commitment, is just what Otis said. It's looking at it through the eyes of the kids, as opposed to, what's the data? How many of X and how many of Y? It's more, what's the student experience, and looking at that track over 4 years and saying, what's the profile of the faculty those kids are likely to come into contact with in their time at Hun. And that's the kind of analysis and the kind of investment that I think is unique. And I do think is, having sort of been in a lot of different schools and worked with a lot of different schools, most are just saying, we want more diversity in our faculty, and are kind of wringing their hands over the lack of success that they're finding in achieving that. And I think our approach to looking at through the eyes of the kids, through retention as being as important as attraction, what's the experience our faculty are having regardless of their background, but what is that experience? And how do we keep good people at Hun? And that's one of my jobs, and it's one of my goals. And having that the mirror and window analysis, I think, is a really good one, and it's really helpful to understand what we're thinking when we have these conversations internally, and they just have more depth than in other places I've been, and it makes you proud to be here.
I'm sorry, can I jump in before you
Please.
go to the next question? I just wanted to say, as part of the alumni network, Otis was making mention of helping with recruitment, but in addition, the alum have offered, these are ways that we want to get more involved on campus. And so we're not the faculty or the staff, and that is important, but to have more of a presence on campus and in the lives of students is something that we are offering to do. It's something that has been received by the institution. And I think that is also another layer that we should sort of recognize and acknowledge that there's value in that as well.
Absolutely. That's a really, really good point, that faculty aren't the only adults we're putting in front of our kids and connecting them with. And I think that, again, fulfills that same mission and speaks to, I think, the depth we're going to really achieve this and our commitment. Other questions from the audience? We got a shy crowd tonight. Otis, you've mentioned the strategic plan a little bit. This is a project that Otis undertook. It probably started it 3 years ago and published it 2 years ago. And maybe you could touch on a little bit of what's there and what's to come. Where do you see us needing to continue to move forward?
Yeah, on the spot, that's a good question. So I think I like the faculty question, because that was one of our goals. I think we talked a lot about accountability as a strategic goal. So whether it's around student accountability, faculty accountability, administrative accountability, and sort of how do we measure that population and student population and student growth, and kind of keeping, we know where we're in a space where there's a lot of different schools, and like we're trying to figure out what is it about our school that attracts students. And I think we have a clear idea, but we want to keep our students who are coming from all over the world, our diverse students, our Black students, our Hispanic, Latino, South Asian students, kind of in the forefront in our recruitment and our financial aid distribution, et cetera. We are looking more to kind of sync our global programming with our cultural competency programming and our service programming. So instead of having those offices work in silos, we want them sort of working together. So when a student comes and they're taking a trip to like Guatemala or to Cuba. There's a trip going to Canada. There's a trip going to England and Spain. Like all of this stuff is happening this year. Like when they get to these places, do they have the capacity to understand the cultures that they're falling into? Like how are their cultural exchange happening? And when they come back, are they engaging locally in the community? Not in a way where they're coming and exchanging like their time, but like they're learning from the communities that they drop in on. So it's not sort of so critical service learning versus just like I have something for you and you have nothing to offer me. We want a more comprehensive program that's in sync. And we want continuous faculty development. So like what are the capacities that our faculty still need to reach? What are the things that are changing? How can we keep them current? And how can we hold them accountable to going through those trainings? And then parent outreach is probably one of our tougher ones, not because we don't have the ability, but we want to do more programming for parents. It's the group that's missing in a lot of schools, but trying to figure out ways to get parents involved in the conversation in a more intentional way is one of our goals as well.
Thank you. And sorry for putting you on the spot there, but I knew you could handle it. Sanvi and Nia, I always try to wrap these up with, really what I'm fishing for is a cool story, but I'll settle for favorite Hun experience. You've both been here for a couple of years, so I'm hoping that it's a tough choice to make to think of what the favorite is, but would love to hear something that was kind of powerful for you.
I have a lot, but if I had to narrow it down, I would say the freshman retreat, because I mean, it was raining and we were outdoors and we were hiking. So that wasn't ideal, but I was with my friends and I still have those friends today. And I think that was my favorite experience because that's when I met them. And we were all a little bit like we had very little motivation left because again, it was raining and we were hiking and it was so cold, but like, it was great because we were able to help each other. And I think just still having those friends today as a senior and having them throughout all 4 years, that's like the best thing I could ask for. And I mean, I'm still making new friends and I really love that. Just getting to know different people, meet new people. That's my favorite experience.
It's great. Nia?
I think if I had to pick one, it would probably be this year during homecoming at the football game. It was a really cool experience just because the step team performed. So I got to see a lot of my friends performing. It was so much fun, super high energy. And also just like the fact that like we were able to create such a student section with like so much cool energy and like everybody was like genuinely excited. Like I don't really watch football that much. Like I don't really know that much about football, but like it was really cool to like be there and like get excited with my friends and like cheer on our team. And I think it was a really good show of like school spirit, especially since we haven't been able to do something as big as that like in the past few years because of like COVID and everything. So it was like a really nice time to just be like all together and like rooting for the same thing.
Well, that's neat. Those are both, like I said, I go fishing for a good story and I scored. So thank you both. I appreciate it. Thank all four of you for being here tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Otis, but knowing your schedule, this is fantastic. Girls, I appreciate your giving up a little bit of homework time here. We actually had another panelist who had a quiz tomorrow and needed to go get extra help tonight. So we are a smaller panel than normal, but you guys have been fantastic. I appreciate it. And Dana, thank you so much for your commitment to Hun, your love for Hun, and your support in this effort and tonight as well. I think the voice of families that have a long-standing experience with Hun is really powerful. And I think it tells a great story and reinforces what I said about this not being new work for us, but ongoing work that's been a part of the Hun culture for a long, long time. And so thank you all to the folks out there. Thanks for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. These are fun for us and I'm really hopeful they're helpful for all of you. I wouldn't be doing my job justice if I didn't put in a little plug for get your applications in. If you haven't already interviewed, give us a call and we'll schedule an interview for you. Whether that's by Zoom or in person, we are doing in-person interviews. So if you're vaccinated, we'd love to have you come visit campus. And if you just have a question, just give me an email. I'm easy to track down on the website. Anything that we can do to help you learn about us, I think, is a really important part of the admissions process. You know, it tends to skew towards me learning about you, but it's equally important that all of you learn as much about us as you can, so that collectively we can make that match that works for kids. So thanks everybody for joining us. Panelists, thank you guys again. I appreciate it. Everyone have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.